Hi everyone, my name is Sophie Jobin from Jobin Kitchen Garden, and today I'm going to show you how to start seeds at home. There's a couple things that we're going to need. We're going to need some growing trays, some seed trays, and all different kinds. We have some soilless mix, some labels, maybe a couple scrap papers, but we'll get into that later. And definitely don't forget your seedlings. So what I'm going to start with is a growing tray. Basically what it is, it's a 10 by 20 flat tray that gets placed underneath your seed tray as such. There's going to be two different kinds out there, one with holes and one without holes. The one with holes is meant for something called microgreens. Basically what they do there is they put the soil on the top, and then they lay the seedlings over the soil, and then they drench it with water, and those holes are so that the water can flow through and not stay in the tray itself. But what we want is we want to be able to put each individual cell on top so that our water can actually stay in the tray. So we want ones without holes. You can start the seedling in almost any type of container as long as it's 2 to 3 inches deep, because that's mainly what we want. We want to have enough space at the bottom so that it can actually develop any type of roots. You can even try growing your seedling in yogurt containers, milk cartons, and you can even create your own newspaper containers. I've definitely seen it. But there's also other versions that you can use that are specially made for seedlings. And that's what we're going to use today. So what we're going to start with is something called germination tray. Here, I'll bring it over. So this guy. So if you can already see, it already has a little bit of seedlings going on right now. This is a germination tray or a plug tray. It's made of a little bit more of a rigid plastic. This is called like double thick plastic. So it's a lot more durable than the thin plastic that's like this. It's more easy to squeeze. This one has a little bit more durability to it. So the nice thing about a germination tray is that it actually has one cell per seedling. That way it actually makes it easy to transplant out into a bigger pot. And it has its own individual cells so that the roots don't get mixed in any way. They come in 50, 72, which is this guy, 128 and 200 cells. So the next thing I want to talk about is the soft shell pack, or the 6-pack. It's not always as sturdy as the plug trays, but it does make a great starter for anybody, just because they are a bit easier to remove than something like a plug tray. Usually what you do, you usually place 2 to 3 seeds per cell. It does make it a little bit harder to transplant as the roots kind of bind together, so you kind of have to be a little bit more delicate when you separate it from when you transplant them. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. You just have to be a little bit more delicate, that's all. Now, before we start planting anything, I want to talk about seed starting mix. Now I'll bring it over. So this guy. So what we want to do is we want to use seed starting mix versus something like soil or from your garden or potting mix, because it will ensure that your mix is fresh, sterilized, thus ensuring healthy, disease-free seedlings. Most seed starting mix are comprised of peat moss, peat humus, coir, perlite, or vermiculite. All of these ingredients are basically great for water retention or good drainage. Most mixes contain few, if any, nutrients at all. So what you're going to want to do is, after they start to germinate, give them a little organic fertilizer just to give them a little bit of boost, some nutrients at all. Luckily, I like to use Pro Mix, and the beauty of this is that because it actually has its own organic fertilizers and mycorrhizomes, which enhances any of the yields, whether that be flowers, fruits, or any type of vegetables, by extending their root system to acquire the most available nutrients in the soil. So it's definitely always a good one to go with if you don't have any Pro Mix around in your area. Definitely always look at the back. They state everything that you'll need to know on the back of the packaging. So don't be afraid to look and have a little bit of a read. And if you don't understand anything, well, you can always look it up or definitely ask somebody around who knows what they're talking about. Okay, so on to the next thing. Labels and diagrams. Definitely one of the more funner part if you're a bit more on the artistic side. If you're growing a lot of vegetables, you're going to want to make sure that you label everything accordingly, because you're going to think that you know what you've planted, but most times you're never going to remember. Everything looks the same once it starts to get to a certain stage. Like if I did not label any of these, I wouldn't have remembered what pepper's what, because they all look the same. They don't have any distinguished like differences that I could tell from. So it's always very, very beneficial to make sure that you're labeling them. Now, how you can do this is when you have your plugs like that, what I did, I don't know if you can see it here, I drew out the tray itself and then I made a box for each plug. So in each plug, I made sure I put the name beside what I wanted to plant it in. That way, once it becomes an adult and I need to repot it, I actually have the capability of having my label and putting it and knowing what it is. Same thing for the 6 cells. I did the same thing here, but I'm actually able to put the labels in the 6 cells rather than the plugs, because there's just too many. I can't. There's just no point. So when you have it in the 6 pack, it's actually a little bit easier to do, and I'll show you that later. All right, so let's get started. So basically, we're gonna take the plastic cell and the mix, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure we're saturated nice and well. Now really, don't be afraid to add some water. Now it's gonna get a little messy, so make sure you have a cloth near you. And just really get in there and mix it all together so nothing is dry anymore. Okay, so once that's all ready, we're gonna take our cell pack and we're gonna make sure that we're filling everything up to the top. Luckily we have this grow tray to catch all the rest of the dirt, really. What you want to do is make sure that you're filling it evenly to the top. Give it a little pat and see if anything pushes down. And because it's already moistened, it actually won't. So the reason why we want to make sure the soilless mix is moistened is so that there's no air pockets when you put it in the tray. If it was dry and then you watered it, and then it would then compress. So then most of the time it would end up halfway down. So this allows it so that it doesn't end up compressing. We're gonna remove that. This is where I'm gonna grab a little bit of hand towel here. So basically this is how it should look. And then once we're ready, we're gonna grab our seed packets. Now the biggest question is, how do you know how to plant any type of seeds? Well, luckily most have directions right on the back, and it will tell you right, depending on which one, it should tell you how far down to plant the seedling. So a great rule of thumb though is that if it's small, you don't need to go very far. Like most times I like to put them right on top. And then I could sprinkle just a little bit over top. But usually you want no more than ½ an inch deep, because they're quite small, so they still need to be able to see light to be able to germinate. And make sure you have your label ready. And we'll go from there. All right, and there you have it. So after that, what we want to make sure is that we take a little bit of a spray bottle and just spray the top just to moisten it up so that the seeds have a little bit of water. And there you go. So now that I've added my seedlings, I want to add it to the 6-pack to where I'm going to put it on my tray.